Yo, what's up?
Welcome to the podcast. We are doing episode 3 today, and we've got a few little surprises for Jaden. We don't know what we're about to record, so independently we were thinking of some things that we were going to talk about. And to start off, we do not have a proper intro, as you've seen, but next week I would like to do an intro. So Jaden,
Is that the surprise? This
is the surprise. This is
work
no one's coming in with the birthday cake or anything. I want to challenge each of us.
Yep.
I want to produce an intro, but I want to produce it in a particular style. So I've been watching Philip Bloom.
Yeah.
We've been watching some camera reviews. We've been looking at different techs and different cameras and that sort of thing. But I watched Philip Bloom do a challenge with some of the people that follow him. And he referenced, I don't know if it was in the 80s or maybe earlier, there was a special type of camera. It's called Super 8.
Yeah.
And you had to do all your editing in camera as you recorded. You couldn't edit in post. So
Yeah.
you would click the little gun and you would shoot a sequence. And when you stop clicking, that's your cut.
Yeah, that was Spielberg's first camera.
Was that what Spielberg did?
Yeah.
Really? Really?
Yeah, and then he made a film later on called Super 8. And it was about some kids and aliens, and they used the Super 8 to record it all.
I didn't realize that because I watched that film. I didn't put that together.
Yeah.
Oh, genius. So what I'd like to do is I want to challenge you to doing a Super 8 intro. So we're not allowed to edit afterwards. We can decide the rules, but I mean, he didn't allow for grading and audio or music, anything like that.
Okay.
But maybe we don't have a Super 8 camera, but we got these cameras. We
Yep.
can do an intro for next week in that style.
So
One
we play
shot,
it
one take.
pre-podcast.
Yes. So the next podcast, our intro will be whatever we've shot.
Okay, I like
one
that.
each, and then we can get people to vote.
We got like a length,
We can decide on it.
and it can be a moving image. It doesn't have to just be face to cam.
The rule is you're not allowed to edit in post. It has to be whatever you shoot, it has to be that.
And jump cut straight to whatever the next shot is.
There's no other tool you can use, right? You can press start and stop,
I've already got ideas. With that aperture wheel,
right?
you can fade out by making it super dark at the end of each shot and then fade in.
I never thought about that, so you've just given me some clues. You shouldn't have said that.
All right, I like that.
So next podcast, we will have one of the two intros, and maybe the following podcast we can have the other, or we can have both. We can see.
All right.
Yeah?
Super 8 intro, I like that.
It's a good challenge. I've been trying to challenge myself recently as I said, we're looking at cameras, and we've just bought a camera. We bought the Blackmagic 4K. So we're trying to improve our game there. But all the guys who are really in the game, they say the best camera is the one that you have. So you
Yeah.
don't have to upgrade your equipment. You've taught me this for years.
It's classic. Yeah.
I don't like it because I want to buy the new gadgets. But I think they're right. And what they keep on saying is stop buying the new camera, stop going after the specs, start to improve your skills. So part of the reason this podcast is going, and part of the reason we've done certain things in different businesses, is just to play, it's to learn, it's to have a go, it's to fail, but fail successfully so you stay in the game.
Yeah,
So-
we could have stopped or delayed the start of this podcast a lot of times waiting for the next bit of gear. That's right.
Absolutely.
Um,
So rather record it badly
for sure.
than use that as an excuse. So, but in that quest for looking at what the better tech is, rather than buying it all, buying something specific, most of the good filmmakers and YouTubers and all that, they're all saying, like, develop your skills, get better at lighting, get better at framing, get better at stabilization. You don't have to buy the new camera first.
Yeah.
And you said, wait until your tech is a constraint before you invest in new tech.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that. I didn't come up with any of those things. That's just given me another idea. We should do a clip on Whaley Pod of this setup as is.
Right.
Because we want to look back at these, right? That's kind of the main thing. So we had a shot at natural lighting, and we've got an LED thing just held up on mic stands. We've got this setup with this audio gear. It'd be fun to do a little clip of the setup, so we can look back at that as well. And when we make improvements, we can see the journey.
I love that idea. That possibly could be, we could constrain the challenge, the Super 8 challenge,
Yeah.
to the setup of the podcast.
Yeah.
if you wanted. Let's do that because that's a great intro.
Let's think about that. I've got other ideas straight away. Like,
Yeah.
could we also do a one take of music? Because I could write a little soundtrack for the intro.
I love that. We talked about this. One of the podcasts that I don't listen to regularly, but I enjoy is a Stevie Weeby podcast.
yeah.
And he always intros his with walking to the piano. He walks out of a bedroom to the piano. He plays some lovely piece of music, but it's just off the cuff. He just plays
Improvised everything.
and then he starts the podcast. And I was saying to you, we should just do a fresh piece every week because you can do that. Bonnie could play some music. Esther could play music.
Yeah. Yeah, so many avenues to play with. It's just like a big playground. Super intro. I like that. Yeah, good stuff.
So we'll do that next week. You'll see a fresh intro from one of us or both of us.
Cool.
It might be awful. It probably will
Mine's
be awful.
going to be amazing.
Topics today I wanted to talk about.
You have some? You done some research?
Well, let's continue to talk about this tech. So one question I wanted to ask you was, when do you start investing money as opposed to time? At what point in a process, whether it's a new podcast, whether it's being an artist, or do you invest in the better pencils,
Yeah.
or do you hone your skill? At what point do you start to invest cash? Do you do that from the beginning? Like, how do people go about doing something new, something fresh?
Like, what would my advice be to people?
What's your opinion? Yeah.
I've done it a ton of different ways. My first guitar was a 10-pound guitar. So that was very minimal. Yeah. I worked as I stayed after school when I was 15 and cleaned. And it was 10 pounds. So that was 2 hours work. That's how I saw that. And that ended up paying multiple months of rent in my life, being able to play guitar. So the payoff in that is huge. But with the Canon, that was my first ever camera. This is the solo shot that's being shot on this camera. I bought about 6 years ago. It's the Canon 5D Mark II. And that was a huge investment for me. That was 10 grand or something like that. So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. There's a difference between play and like an investment into what I'm going to do. So with the Canon, I kind of considered that more play. I really wanted to do a kind of video. But if it was music equipment, I consider that more work. So there has to be a benefit to, like, have I already got the momentum to need this? Am I constrained? I need to do this sound for this gig and I can't. That warrants in a business buying a bit of tech. Does that make sense?
So
I feel like I rambled through that a little bit.
no, I see what you're saying. So what about the person who just wants to buy the fancy piece, like me? I just want to buy the fancy tech.
Just for fun.
For fun, but with the view that at some point it'll become a profitable thing. But just because that's how I think. I want to make profit. I want to be successful at the thing. And if it's business, one of the main metrics is profit.
Yeah.
So I think blow the constraint off, get something way bigger than where you currently are so you can grow into it.
Mm.
It's just not always financially responsible.
Well, you're coming from the background of doing things successfully, and I come from a background of doing things like for a little bit and then giving up. So for me, that's just not viable because I already don't have that much money, and I would have nothing if every whim that came along.
Right.
Because I get those about once a month. I got really into modular synthesis a month ago after watching Duncan Trussell's program, and I had the shopping cart full of about 20,000 USD worth of gear.
Wow.
So if I went on the whim and I was like, I'm just going to make money from it, I know from past experience that I won't. I'll give up after a while, or I'll just do it for enjoyment. Like the Canon is a good example of that. That's actually a bad example because I did stick with that and it led to other things. But the Canon itself has never made me money. It's just made me connections, if that makes sense.
And you have made money because you were in the game. And
Yeah.
when you were playing that game, you got into commercial shoots
Yeah.
and you got to meet phenomenal people. And then you got actually some other gigs that weren't necessarily camera related because of those people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I'm seeing that in a different way, like using the Canon itself as a tool.
Yeah.
No. But I used it to do what I wanted. And because of that, I met a bunch of people and so on and so forth. Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest drivers. And this would be a counterpoint to your point. One of the biggest drivers is passion.
Mm.
And so if you're passionate about whether it be a camera or a pencil or whatever it is, the new knitting needles,
Yeah.
that will then inspire connections and network, and people will be ignited by that.
Passion and consistency. I got plenty of passion, but not that much consistency. So camera was a bad example because I actually stayed consistent with that. But there's been a ton of other things where, yeah, it
Well, I
just
think
dropped off.
music has been the most consistent thing in your life.
Yeah, it's the one. Yeah, I'd agree with that too. So
So-
two bad examples.
So why wouldn't you invest all your money into the next piece of music equipment and just build up a reservoir of instruments and gadgets? Because that has been something you've been consistent for most of your life.
Yeah, and I've done that through the years. That's why I've never had savings, because if you look around the studio, there's music equipment everywhere. Every bit of spare money, I do exactly that.
Right.
Maybe that's another reason why I can't get into every passionate hobby that I see that I want to get involved in, because I mean, I had it a few years ago looking at cameras and I was like, I've got to pick one or the other because there's not enough money to get fully into music or fully in. So I've generally tended to go towards the music side, and that is where all my money's been. But I just think with my personality type, it would be tough to give that advice. Like, yeah, just be passionate and go for it, because that consistency is key. So when you say, oh, I'm thinking about this camera, I feel safe going go for it because you're consistent.
I don't know if that's true, but thank you for the compliment.
Yeah.
Last year, Bonnie and I were about to go on holiday for 2 months, and I wanted to buy a camera to record the trip.
Yeah.
But there was no guarantee I was going to record it because I've never had a camera in my life. I'm not a very artsy person at all. I'm quite logical and boring. And so
Very ordered.
too ordered probably.
Yeah.
I decided, okay, I want to get a camera. I want to record this. But I was on the fence for so long, and you were the one who said, no, go for it. Just, you pushed me over the edge to get it.
Yeah.
And you actually helped me to make a good choice on the camera, because the fancy one, which we've just bought, still had issues at that point. So you got me to get the safe one, even though it was slightly more expensive, and you made me get the great lens.
It was more than what you needed at that time.
Yeah.
By a long shot. But I knew if you were consistent with it, which you are, you'll grow into that for 5 years. Like, I try to think about equipment like this in 5 years, am I still going to be happy with what I can get from this?
Which is a good way to look at it, because it's a huge investment.
Yeah.
So, but if you can get 5 years use out of it, even if it's just a hobby and it's not leading to some financial gain or some opportunity,
Yeah.
that's a decent return.
So that takes us from this shot to that shot,
Yeah.
because that's the one you bought. It was our wide shot.
Yeah.
And that's been great. Hey, your footage from America is really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
I think for me, it's phenomenal. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not very artistic, and it got me into the more creative type work, because with the tech side of things, that's what attracted me. But then it sort of draws you over to the more artistic side, and then it also opens up more opportunities, because as you get more consistent and you get better at that, you can do other things with it.
So the same question back to you. You said to me, like, when would you say just go for it and follow your passion? So was it worth it? Just throwing money at a camera thing, which you hadn't done before, like, was it worth it?
I mean, you saw me struggle with that decision.
Yeah.
That wasn't a cheap decision for me. That was a real big decision. It was actually months of research and reading the tech and reading the reviews and reading the opinions and reading the other side of them. You said go and Google problems with camera X, and so it was a big threshold for me to go over. And one of the things wasn't so much about, is it choice A or choice B? The main problem for me in general is, do I really need it? Am I really worth that investment? That's the biggest thing. Because when I see the price tag and I see how much it is,
Yeah.
I go, I'm not really worth that. It's not really worth it. I could do something else with that money to benefit others. Why should I benefit myself? If I was buying you that camera, I would have no problem. If I was buying someone else something, I'd have zero problem with
Yeah.
it.
It's easier
But-
to value someone else.
When it was for me, because it really was just for me at that point, I was like, I'm not sure. So I then have to play these other games about, well, I'm investing for some other thing so I can help other people.
Then you have to go the psychology route of treat yourself like someone that you cared for, right?
What is that?
I think that's Peterson.
So explain that thought better.
So he talks about it in from a medical sense that people are 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 likely to fulfill their subscription or prescription for their animals.
Wow.
But they are only for themselves 1/3 of the time they actually get the prescription and take the medicine for the right amount of time. So for an animal, you'll do it 99 out of 100, but for yourself, you'll do it 1 out of 3. So the idea there is that we don't treat ourselves well. We don't respect ourselves that well. We don't hold ourselves in high esteem. Exactly like how you're saying, if it was for you, I'd buy the camera, no problem. You're external. But I'm not the one that's living in your head all the time. Because if I was, you would be questioning me a lot more. That's the idea behind that. So he talks about like negotiating with yourself, not like in a business where you go, oh, you have to do this and like treat yourself like a dictator, but rather as you're working together. So there's a clear separation of self there. So he suggests that we should negotiate with ourselves kindly, say, listen, we've got to do this, but if we do this, let's take ourselves out for a treat, or let's buy that camera, or something like that. I think that works a lot better. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have. When I first heard that, I wept for like
Really?
20 minutes. I cried like a baby because that's exactly one of the biggest problems I have is treating myself well.
Yeah.
I'm much better at treating others well. When I have to treat myself well, and I think I do treat myself well, but there's like a psychological
It makes
barrier.
sense to me that you wouldn't, because you've been there for all the times that you messed up.
Yeah,
You've
I know
had
me.
all the bad thoughts.
Yeah.
With other people, we can kind of externalize it, and yeah, it's harder to be kind on yourself. I'm not sure if that's a Whaley trait or a family worldwide trait.
I think
Probably.
it's a human trait.
Yeah.
So yeah, treat yourself kindly is a powerful idea. I don't like the extreme of that where people say, oh, treat yourself, and you're always just, oh, you deserve it. Sometimes you don't deserve it. Actually, most times you don't deserve it.
Have you seen those pictures, Facebook, Instagram recently, black and white, and it's just women saying, I celebrate myself.
I haven't,
Challenge accepted.
but I can imagine it.
I think that's the
I
extreme.
have seen it. Yes.
Yeah, challenge accepted.
Right.
And it's essentially like, I'm great because I'm a woman.
Which is true.
No,
You don't think women are great?
I think some great women are great.
Okay.
And I think some terrible women are terrible.
Right. No, you're right.
What's the Myra Henley, the British mass murderer of children?
She's not great.
She wasn't great. She was a woman.
Right.
I hate this black and white. I hate this black and white.
Yeah.
I'm this, so I'm amazing.
Yep. I agree.
No, absolutely not. And the same in the reverse. I'm white, so I'm terrible. No,
Yep.
also not true.
That's right.
I think there's like a detraction from the individual there. So you're talking about something like talking to yourself well. Or, yeah, there is an extreme there that you should avoid, because
Yeah.
that's not yourself. You're just identifying as a group
Yeah.
and saying, I'm amazing because I'm this group. No, definitely not.
No, I agree. And we're seeing a lot of that across the world now,
Yeah.
where people are extremely political with that sort of stuff. And you can't say anything against it because there's such backlash.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a tangent from the camera buying thing, but I think it
It's the same route.
works the same. Like for me, I have to question that because I know myself, not as an identity, but as Jaden, is not that consistent, but is passionate and has some level of skill. So I need to treat myself like that, not like any other group,
Yeah.
you know?
If you had a kid, and I'm not thinking about this in terms of Sammy, our kid, but I'm just thinking in general, if you were giving advice to someone and they had a kid, what's the boundary between when you would say, okay, go and treat yourself, you deserve it, well done?
Oof.
And when would you say, listen, that's a stupid idea. You're gonna go down the wrong road here. You're gonna spend all your money. You're gonna end up destitute. I'm gonna have to always rescue you, and then enable some bad thought patterns.
It's so intricate, right? Because someone from a different background has a different amount, so it's all kind of in relation to that, maybe from a time perspective. So it's a kid growing up.
Well, think about mom and dad treating you, me, and Seamus.
Okay. I got a lot of nice stuff compared to you guys. And I got a lot less discipline compared to you guys.
It's true.
I had an easy time of it in comparison. So do I think that's a good way to do it? No. I think I could have learned a lot of stuff a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Had I been given the same kind of parenting that you guys got.
Yeah.
I think that's not going to be a shock because they're watching this.
No, they know. We all know.
We all know. Okay, good. It's not like I got away with it. No one realized.
So for context, when I'm the oldest brother and the middle brother, Seamus, when we were growing up, I think at the age of 4, I was cleaning my own room. I was like folding clothes, and we had to be clean and we had to do certain things and we had to help in the house. Pretty much you got away with not having to do any of that. Pretty much.
There was a little bit of tokenism, but it didn't really mean much.
Yeah. So you were very good at like slinking off and just not being involved in the hard parts of life.
And then rewarded for that as well, I would argue.
Yeah.
Because by that point, you and Seamus were old enough to be looking after me and doing stuff for me as well.
Yeah.
So a little bit older, and you guys were getting me gifts, so it's a little party. Everyone was.
Yeah. And also, I don't think, at least for my part, I don't think Seamus either. We're not begrudging or upset about that. We're not like those, Jade, we heard him always. But I think it is a thing.
It's hard to argue against living life like that because it's so
if you
easy.
can get away with it.
The problem comes when you leave the house and then
You have to make your own
say
way.
I went to uni and now I'm living with other people and they're not treating me the same way.
Right.
Did
you have issues with that?
To be honest, I lived with people that were way more babied than me.
Wow.
So I started adopting the kind of older brother role in a lot of university situations. Really? Yeah. So the way I came out of that was different. It was kind of, my duty was changed.
Huh.
So I started being cleaner then, not clean, but cleaner, more organized then. Yeah. Kind of bizarre.
That's a strange thing.
But I think that's what you get with being conditioned that way. There will come a point where if you're going to be useful to anyone or have a family, you're screwed. Like you have to sort your life out pretty quickly.
So when you have kids, what angle are you going to take? Are you going to take is there going to be a little bit of babying, a little bit of loose boundaries? Are you going to be quite strict? How will you do it?
I think my aim is to be strict, knowing that from all the parents I've spoken to, as soon as they have a kid, they fall so in love with it that they get soft. So I'd rather aim for being strict and then soften.
Okay.
And strict not in a, like, I want to be mean to this kid way. Strict in a, I want the best for this kid way. I want to let myself not get in the way as much as possible. Like, I don't want my feelings and my love to get in the way for the best that the kid could have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Success comes at some sort of cost.
Yeah.
You can't just eat donuts all day and be fit and be healthy. Like there's a cost. I can't eat the donut because I want to be,
And I can imagine being weak and just saying, I just want to do everything for this kid. And that's probably the meanest thing you could do, right?
It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. So do you wake up in the morning and feel like a negative effect? Do you ever feel like you're running uphill?
Because of my childhood?
Because of that?
No. I get that your childhood has a big impact on your life, but I believe in you get to certain steps and you decide to take them or not. And after you've taken that step, that's been dealt with.
Right.
So
unless you want to blame your parents and wallow in that.
Again, you take the step to take personal responsibility. Right. I'm not my gender. I'm not my race. I'm not any of those things. I'm actually Jaden. Take your personal responsibility. Once you've taken that step, everything else kind of falls in line, right? So my life's a mess, whose fault is it? It can't be how I was brought up. It's my fault.
But it did have, just to play devil's advocate, because I love what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
It influences you. And if you haven't taken that step to take responsibility for a particular angle or perspective, then you're still living in the squalor of whatever your parents gave you.
Yeah.
So it does make a difference.
I'd
But you're not imprisoned by it.
For sure it makes a difference. And you might be imprisoned by it until you hear someone say, oh, there's this thing called personal responsibility.
Right.
Which means like your parents are going to die and you're still living your life resentful. There's no one there to hate left.
Yeah.
Like there's no two ways around it. You were living your life.
That's right.
And you have to live with yourself for every day. Often when someone's being a douchebag, I look at them and I feel sorry for them because I know they're going to keep living with themselves for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that's right.
I saw someone yesterday being a douchebag and I had that thought in my head. It wasn't anger, it was pity.
Really?
That's a death sentence.
Just a slow one.
Yeah, well, if you get sent to prison for life or double life or whatever it is, that's essentially what they're doing, right? They're living in their own prison that they made for themselves.
Right.
For the rest of their life.
Right.
So that's what I think. So if you realize that, maybe you don't hear it from someone else. Maybe you just realize every day you're waking up and you're living under this prison of my childhood. It's so funny to say that about my childhood because it was nice. It was so good. But like how we're saying, it kind of screws you up a bit. So you realize that and go, change one little thing and realize, my action is mine. And the result of my actions is mine as well. I get those wins. I get those losses. As soon as that dawns on you, I think that's the rest of your life sorted.
I think part of the cancel culture movement is trying to assign blame outside of yourself. And when I say blame, I don't mean necessarily doing something wrong, but it's assignment of responsibility. Oh, so it's the hierarchy, it's the patriarchy, it's the system, it's systemic this, it's systemic that. But when you assume responsibility yourself, it's actually an incredibly empowering thing because then you're not relying on others to give you room. You make your own room. You make your own way. And if they don't invite you to their party, start your own party.
Absolutely.
I watched a clip with Bill Burr years ago, and he was talking to a female reporter, and the female reporter said, what about, female comics, and aren't female comics funny? And she was trying to infer that men don't give women room in the world of comedy. And she was saying that, it was sexist. And he said, the answer to it is be undeniable.
Yeah.
If you're a female comic, just be undeniable. Make sure you're so funny that they can't deny you.
Yeah.
And I hate this idea of...
That's so applicable to anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you feel underappreciated in any aspect, be undeniable. That's so good.
It's powerful, eh? Because it's taking personal responsibility. And that's what people are feeling. They feel being disempowered. They feel like they don't have room or they don't have a voice. That's the common word we use today. People don't have a voice. So then they complain about the fact that someone else is using their voice. So they want to quieten that down and lower that and make everyone else shut up so that they can have a voice. That lowers the ceiling for everyone. This is what small-minded people don't understand. They think that when someone else is successful, that it makes them unsuccessful. When actually, when you got a successful mindset, when you got a positive mindset, a growth mindset, or a learning mindset, you see someone else's success and say, I can do that too. Hey, maybe I could even improve on what they're doing. That is powerful.
Yeah.
When you when you feel insecure that someone else has won or done something successful or got the platform or got the voice, that's got to be a sign to you. Bing! Oh, I'm in trouble here. I'm in real trouble.
Yeah.
But so I think one of the good practices to do is celebrate success, even if it's not something that you're good at. Every now and again, I'll watch a weightlifter. Clearly, I'm not a weightlifter, and he'll break the record, or a high jumper, or some person in some other field breaks a record. I'll go, wow, that's amazing. How did he do that?
That can be
'Cause I
done.
want to celebrate that success because it develops a momentum in you where you go, I can be successful. I could try that.
Yeah. But I think if you're growing up babied like how I was, you're much more likely to look at that and go, I get everything given to me. Why am I not getting that given to me?
Wow.
Why can't I break the record from just sitting here in my room doing nothing?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's where that personal responsibility can open your horizons to look at success in a positive way, and not your ego going, oh, I feel weaker now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, there's more possible in the world now. So that's another downside to that kind of upbringing.
Yeah.
Again, not having a go at you guys for doing it. I was super cute.
You were very cute. We were looking at some old photos. Let's put that up. You were the fat little podgy baby. But everyone thought you were cute.
Yeah.
It wasn't just us that thought you were cute. Everybody thought you were a very cute boy. And I remember you would always lose your shoes at school. You hated shoes. To this day, you still hate shoes.
I never lost them.
Yeah. Yeah, what happened?
I used to, I only went to that school for 3 months or something.
Yeah.
And I would go into the sand pit and I would dig a hole and bury my shoes in.
Do you remember doing that?
Yeah. Because then I would get called into the headmaster's office, and then eventually Nikki came one day and led me out, and I had to go show her where the shoes were. Yeah. I remember that.
And so you're only in that situation for 3 months, and then we left school. All three of us, all three boys, we decided we could do better at home, and we did. We did significantly better.
So it's another place I lost out on
Some discipline.
getting beaten into the system a bit, you know?
Yeah. I think tasting injustice is a good thing.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds, tasting something that is too strict or too confining is helpful to appreciate some of the good stuff. Not that we're into yin and yang, but I think there is something positive in going through harsh experiences.
How else do you know there's such a thing in the world?
Yeah.
Unless you experience some small level of injustice. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're talking about the world, it's barely a fraction, but it's good to see that there is injustice, and that forms your concept like, oh, these parents I have can be right or wrong.
Yeah.
The way I'm acting could be right or wrong. It's, to be exposed to some sort of injustice is...
But also it builds
integral.
empathy, because when you experience that, you're not going to perpetuate that with others.
Yeah.
And so you know what it's like to be on the other end of that.
Nikki and Keith used to say that to us. So how would you feel if...
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think I ate some of your birthday cake before your birthday or something. Oh, how would you feel? Finally starting to get the idea of, oh, there's other people in the world.
And I know we're jumping around, but I think that's, again, leads into this toxic culture we have online, because when and you're the one who told me this, but when the kid punches the other kid in the face and then sees a negative reaction, they learn, oh, this is not a good thing. And sometimes it escalates into that kid punching you back in the face. So you learn these lessons on a playground. This is where you learn these sort of things. When you're just on the internet, which at this point in time, everyone's on the internet because all schools are shut down, the pandemic is running rife.
Yeah.
There's very little of that interaction, so you can put a comment out there or a tweet and say some of the most horrible, destructive stuff, but there's nothing real that comes back to you.
Yeah.
You can just turn off replies.
If anything, I can imagine myself in that position. It would feel good.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
you
it?
would feel vindicated to give your truth.
Yeah. And now what am I seeing? Nothing.
Yeah.
Like I log out, go on with the rest of my day. It probably feels really good.
We
Say,
should
I
try it.
hate
Should
you.
try for a week.
You're fat and you're
Go
gross.
kill yourself.
You've not, like, nothing you've done is good. Like, that must feel kind of good to say
The
that.
sick part of you would
Yeah.
enjoy it.
I think Louis C.K. does a bit about that. And it's like, yeah, I feel good afterwards.
He does.
I think there's truth in that, though. There's no consequence. There's no human face looking back at you, having to deal with that, you know? Yeah. So you think that's kind of the lack that we have today?
Yeah, I think our parents, I mean, Dad literally fought wars. He ran, I said to you the other day, he ran into battle. He led men into battle. That's crazy. People were back at home base worrying about people potentially dying and hearing reports of people dying every day. Think of our grandparents. Most of our grandparents or great-grandparents grew up in a war. They were fighting for somebody. And at least families and whole communities were touched with war. There's no way you could escape it. But we've grown up in such peaceful times. And I know there's rumors of wars and there's potential things going on, but we've grown up with such easy lives. Millennials have, and I'm not someone to criticize just for the sake of it.
You're talking Western millennials specifically, right? Because Syrian millennials...
Yeah, but it's so confined and so unique. Like the world wars were on a global scale. Pretty much everyone was touched by it.
Yeah.
We're talking about very unique events like Sudan and Rwanda and those sort of things. There's been little spikes on the graph, but for the most part in Western civilization,
The overall, okay, I can see.
for the most part, you think of an Australian kid, they've had
Oh
it so
my
easy.
goodness.
Think of most American kids. There's some areas, but most American kids, they've had it easy.
I think it's easier to attack the Australians. They've had it even easier.
Yeah, they have had it. And I loved being in Australia when we were there. So we haven't really faced any conflict or hardship or persecution or fighting for an idea or fighting for some level of freedom. We've been given it all because of other people's battles.
Can we find that adversity without like such bloodshed around the earth? I'm not saying you're saying that the wars was a good thing.
No,
But it
not at
brought
all.
a certain perspective, solidarity, empathy to individuals, right?
Human decency, almost.
So I'm guessing the lead from that is there a way to get those things without such terrible bloodshed and like the height of injustice?
There has to be, right? It would be such an evil answer if you said, no, you have to go through hardship to get.
This is what
Yeah.
I would argue. Nothing comparing to how terrible those things are, but we're looking for adversity, right?
True.
So even this podcast is a small form of adversity.
It is, yeah.
We have to come up with when are we going to do it? How are we going to film it? What about the lighting? Like we're creating an obstacle that we don't need in our way.
It's true. You don't build muscle without some resistance.
It's like I said last time, Musk sold that company, invested all his money and started sleeping on a friend's sofa. So he's creating that adversity again for himself in pursuit of something greater, right? So finding that adversity in your own life. So everyone goes and works out. Like, why the hell would you do that? We don't need muscles.
That's right.
In our day-to-day, we sit down and like, why would you go and work out? People crave that adversity because it makes them stronger.
Do you find after you've worked out, you feel better? You got high levels of serotonin and you feel more relaxed? Like if you're feeling pent up and tense after you work out.
I want to say no just to be contrarian.
But you do, right?
Last night, Charlotte and I worked out and then we meditated afterwards. Not like but we just sat there and we focused on our breathing and we sat with straight backs. I felt so good afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have that mountain, you have that uphill struggle, if you do not express that need for some resistance, it's going to manifest in some Twitter comment. It's going to manifest somewhere, right? You've got to release it somehow. It's going to manifest at your dog or your boss or whatever.
Yeah. Probably someone below you.
Yeah, someone you can kick around.
Generally, yeah,
Who
you
has to
punch
take
down
it.
in that way.
So I think we're having to manufacture. If the war comes to you, if World War II is on your doorstep, like Granddad signed up for it, it came to him, so he volunteered himself to go and fight that.
Illegally. I think he was 15 when he volunteered for that war.
Forged signatures and all the rest. It's different today when we have to manufacture. It's not that we have to manufacture because they're real battles. It's just not it's not a world war, but it's getting fit, or it's a financial goal, or it's a relational goal, or something. You have to create some sort of mountain. I think we're designed for that.
Yeah.
For some sort of uphill struggle.
Yeah, there's a few analogies for it, right? It's like the muscle tearing to grow back stronger, or it's the burning away the dead leaves on the bush.
Right.
Yeah, because as individuals, we want to be better. We want to be stronger. We want to have a greater impact on the whole. Again, it comes back to that individual need.
Yeah.
And to base that on something stupid like teachers. Oh, I'm a teacher. I feel so good being a teacher. Everything is then one for teachers. Like, no, I can't be just confined to that. I'm going to win this for me. and for my people in my family are then going to grow from that, and it will have a greater impact on all of those subgroups that I identify as. But I'm going to do it as an individual, and if I mess up, it's not their fault, it's my fault.
So if there's anybody listening to this, but if someone was feeling like there's some meaningless in life, or they're going nowhere, or they just feel that tension, they don't really have a release for it, what would you advise them to actually go and do?
First of all, I'd say I feel that often.
Really? You really do?
Yeah. Yeah. After I complete something, I'll feel this. I'll feel a little bit of joy for a couple of minutes, and then a kind of
The complete is remorse.
Yeah, complete is remorse.
Yeah.
So what's the advice for that? The advice that's worked most often for me, again, nothing is my own idea. Look around for the heaviest thing to pick up and pick that up. So if I look around, Sean's doing these daily encouragements. I'm tired, I've just finished work, but I've completed it now. So do I want to just go sit and feel like pointless? Or let me help him film this one. Let me set up that shot. I can do this in a good way. I think that's the good advice. Go do something generally for someone else. And whatever you can see that you're able to pick up and is big, do that. Struggle with it. And at the moment, that might be making a coffee for someone.
Thanks for the coffee yesterday.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I was feeling very weak. At the moment, it might be something really small, but go do something for someone. And then the next day, you might be able to do something a little bit more. You might be able to do something a little bit more, and then sort your life out so you can do even more for people. I think when you're feeling hopeless, nihilistic, meaningless, that's what you do. Because, I mean, those people are all thinking about themselves.
That's the problem.
So go do something as small as you can think for someone else and build on that.
That's the secret for AA, is these guys were going around trying to get rid of the addiction to alcohol.
Yeah.
And they found that in counseling others and helping others through it, that's what got them off alcohol. Yeah. And so the whole program, from what I understand, is built on, I'll never give up alcohol. No, the whole program is built on helping others to stay free of the addiction, and that actually gets them free.
I think there's a few tenets we could talk about with AA that they're built on, like things like honesty as well. But the work, I think, is largely built around helping others.
Yeah, that perspective where it's not just focused on yourself. And yet the paradox is that that's the thing that helps you the most is not focusing on you.
Yeah.
It seems like the most unselfish thing brings the greatest benefit.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus said. It's better to give than to receive.
Yeah.
And he wasn't being some like spiritual guru, better to give. And it's like, but he's saying on paper, if you measure the benefits of giving versus the benefits of receiving, it's better to give.
I got a question that might derail this for a little bit.
Derail Jesus?
Yeah, I think Jesus really messed up.
You're in safe territory today.
In terms of that, sort the log out in your own eye before you help
the speck in
someone else's. How does that play into that? Because we're essentially saying the opposite. Am I wrong?
No, I think it's a valid point. I think the context of the log and the speck is religion. It's judgment,
okay.
I think.
Okay.
So I would say that he's saying don't throw stones because you live in a glass house. Sort out your glass house before you try and... He's not saying you can kill others once you've killed... He's saying there's an issue that you are living with that is much worse than someone else's. So don't judge them.
That's from a judgmental perspective. Because in my head, a log is a perfect analogy for it. You're walking around with all this terrible stuff. You put it down to help someone else out and you get some perspective on...
Oh, that's a good perspective.
And then I was thinking about it. I was like, someone said something about that. Oh, yeah, it was Jesus said the opposite thing. That's how I kind of see it, is that you now not focused on yourself and all your problems and your issues, and which are all valid, and you go and do something for someone else. You get a sense of perspective. You get that small bit of serotonin for helping someone.
Yeah.
And you can come back and it just seems more manageable. you write the checklist and you start getting it done to sort out your own mess.
Right.
So I think it's kind of a good analogy. You put that log down. And,
I like that picture. I've never thought about it that way. That's good.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to see if that did
Correlate.
But yeah, from judgmental perspective, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I think judgmental people are usually the worst culprits for the thing they're judging others for. I think that's the context for that thing. And I know definitely for me, often I'll cover up my insecurity or my issue with sort of a vitriol defense of that by attacking others.
Yeah.
I've spotted that in my history.
Freud calls that projection.
Right.
And in the world history, like the grimiest English subculture is during the Victorian era, where everything was very prim and proper on the surface, no ankles and everything. But that's when like the underworld of British sex trade and stuff like that was at an all-time high. That's when they got the most deviant.
Right.
It was when the surface was all prim and proper. Similar in cultures like Japan. Behind closed doors, they have some of the wildest stuff. But out on the surface, people won't hold hands. It's very restricted. So I think...
Sort of drives that stuff down.
Yeah. So I think that's true. If you got that in you, you're going to project it at people.
Right.
The vitriol, yeah. But really it's because you're seeing, I've got that in me and I haven't dealt with it.
So I've got to fight it up there because I don't know how to win it down here.
You haven't integrated the shadow, like the Jungian idea. You haven't wrestled with this is a part of me. How can I be in control of it? It's hiding and it will come out at people.
Yeah.
Whenever you see it. Often when you think, I hate this person, I don't know why, study them because it's probably something you do.
It's a reflection of who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, projection and the shadow self, I think they have a big part to play with that.
I'll notice that with if I'm feeling like I'm drowning and I'm failing with a particular job or something, if I go home and I don't check myself, which I don't always check myself, the second Bonnie does something wrong, I'll be bitching all over her. And then I'll be, as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, Sean.
You got to sort your life out. And
yeah. But I'm the one who doesn't have my life sorted. And so out of nowhere, she's getting beaten down with my words, and it's got nothing to do with her. It's all me.
Yeah. Do you ever go back to her after that? Because I've done this a few times, where it's all projection. Do you ever go back afterwards and say, listen, I was talking to myself then?
I'm too proud.
Maybe we should work on that one next week.
Yeah. No, actually, I think you're too proud. It's interesting. We're very weird creatures, humans. We are so fragile and yet we find strength. We're so good and yet there's so much evil. There's this weird concoction of humanity.
Little dichotomy going on.
Yeah.
That's why that's why the Peterson stuff is so appealing, because of all that old myth and stuff. It's all in there. The yin and the yang and the chaos and the order. It's all built into this binary that we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are interesting. It's fascinating, hey?
And I think the people who think they're best are usually the worst. I mean, that's why religion is so damaging.
Yeah.
Because they come out and parade themselves as, we've got all the answers. We know our way towards God. Follow us. And it's the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, if you meet a super confident person and know them for a couple of weeks, I'm saying like arrogant confident.
Right.
You'll see the worst insecurities you've ever seen in your life. I can think of a few examples, but I won't say them. But yeah, it's weird, eh? Projection. Maybe we should talk more psychology. Maybe I can.
Yeah, well, prepare some points. You know much more about that than I do.
It's just fascinating. I like that it makes a logical sense for the most part as well.
It's making logical sense of emotional things.
Yeah.
Or at least they worked out on your emotion.
And you can go through history, you can go through your personal history, and you see these things playing out, and they're just so evident.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe my Super 8's going to be super psychological.
Because I'll say that I think one of the things that I'm starting to develop some success in is financially. And the biggest threshold that I've had to cross wasn't a financial threshold in order coming into greater and greater finance. The greatest threshold was a psychological one.
Hmm.
It wasn't a financial problem. And I think the same thing for like fitness or health or being, having well-being. It's not, the gym isn't the threshold.
Yeah.
It's your own thought. It's how you value yourself. It's how you perceive yourself. It's what your defaults are going to the fridge at 12 o'clock at night.
So your physical self could be in the best, most equipped place on earth for what
Yeah.
you want to be doing, and you
You'd
haven't
still
sorted
be
this out,
unhealthy.
and you can't access all of it.
Yeah. And I
Horrible.
think that's why people like
Nightmare.
Tony Robbins can be used by some of the best actors or sports people or politicians or whatever, because he helps them figure out this thing, and he helps them figure out their emotions. And so, whilst he may not be the expert on weightlifting, he'd be able to get that weightlifter through that psychological barrier.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of UFC, and Donald Cerrone said in his fight against Conor McGregor,
Yeah.
he didn't feel like he was going to win. And he had the capability. He's one of
Yeah.
the OG fighters in UFC.
It's his weight group that Connor was coming up to.
And so he had some advantages, and he felt like he couldn't win the fight.
I think Tony Robbins was in Connor's corner for that fight, oddly enough.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Cav and I talking about it. Connor's coach. So they actually had Tony Robbins working with them. That's so
That's
odd.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah, that mental barrier, hey, that can hold you back from so much.
So I think it's a worthwhile pursuit to go down the psychological angle. I don't like all of it. I don't think all of it's great. Sometimes it's just too introspective. But I don't think we give it enough attention for the most part.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about the schools of psychology that you apply, then yeah, definitely. But if you're talking just about yourself, I think psychology is always at play. That's how your mind works.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
So for sure, some of the schools of it, I mean, they'll all attack each other in different ways, but it's not something I keep a close eye on, even though I'm interested in it during the week. Like I would dedicate more time to different relationships and food and all these different things. But I wonder if there's something in that, if it might be worth challenging ourselves to have a daily check-in or something. See how it goes.
One of the biggest examples for me that I reference is biblically when Israel was trying to get into the promised land. God had promised them some land, said you're going to go in. They went and sent some spies in, and they're looking at big giants. And they said, we feel like, or we see ourselves as grasshoppers. And so that's a psychological thing. That's not a physical reality.
Yeah.
The giants were maybe 3 feet or 6 feet taller than they were. They weren't skyscrapers. And so they felt like grasshoppers. It was an emotional thing. It was a psychological thing. And they cost themselves 400 years of wandering around, dying off effectively.
Really?
Yeah, 40 years, not 400 years. 40 years they danced around the desert doing nothing, waiting for all the men who were of fighting age to die off. And once they died, then they were able to go into the promised land.
Did the next group of men say how they felt once the grasshoppers
Yeah,
had
well,
all
they
died
had
off?
40 years of doing nothing, right? So now they were ready.
Pent up.
Yeah. And so I think that is such a classic biblical example of when you see yourself small, you are restricted. And like what you said right at the beginning, it's a death sentence. That's literally what it is. It's a death sentence. It's just a long-term one.
And they literally carried out that death sentence just wandering around.
And the funny thing is, their sandals didn't wear out. So God had provided them with such blessing and such impetus and everything that they needed to get in, to the point where even their shoes didn't get old. But because they had this internal mindset of, oh, we're small like grasshoppers, and they let that boundary stop them, they died out before their shoes did.
I wonder what their childhoods were like. And what
Well, they were slaves.
Their kids' childhoods was wandering around this desert,
Right.
not getting their inheritance yet.
That's probably part of the reason why they actually decided to cross over properly when they had the chance.
We've seen the example.
Yep. 2 guys from that whole nation went in. Everyone else died.
Wow.
And I think, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. I think most people on the planet today live like that. They live waiting to die.
Avoiding.
They live waiting for the weekend They live waiting for, one day when I have $1 million.
Yeah.
It
It's almost like accepting a worse life because it's safer and longer, right?
That's right. Because that giant could kill you. But wouldn't you rather run
Die
into
trying.
battle and possibly die
Yeah.
than march around the desert for 40 years and then die?
I think if they could fast forward the next 40 years and then reverse time, they would have gone and fought the giants.
You don't always get those opportunities again, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's moments. You make a career choice or a university choice or a marriage choice or a non-marriage choice. You don't always get to replay those things.
But we do get to hear about other people's stories and go, okay, if I'm getting this opportunity, I've really got to check myself and go, am I going to be scared of this and live the rest of my life wandering in a desert? Or am I going to take it head on and maybe die?
Yeah. I think the younger you are, the less risk you want and those sort of things, but the braver you are.
Yeah.
As you get older, I think you're more willing to take the risk. Because you know what those healings do. That's terrible. That's what a midlife crisis is, right? You didn't take the opportunity. You got stuck with the wife and kids, and actually it's not what you saw for your life. So you then get rid of the wife and you trade her in and you try and get the sports car.
All that stuff you've been pushing down comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend.
It's been one of the biggest terrifying aspects of my life is I don't want to have a midlife crisis. I want to have a midlife crisis every single day. I don't, but I hope that there's some positive form of fear that motivates me to try or do or fail.
More
and
like a
still get up.
midlife kerfuffle every day rather than a midlife crisis.
Yeah, something that doesn't kill me in one moment, which could take 40 years, but that's one moment.
Yeah.
I want something that I could potentially fail, but at least I'm confident that I gave it a go.
I think being well voiced in that as well, because life does tend to just disintegrate beneath your feet at certain points. Someone dies, someone cheats, whatever it is, whatever you thought was solid ground is going to disintegrate at some point in the near future in your life, right? So if you're constantly going through these kerfuffles, you're ready for that.
Yes, I think you lessen the negative effect of those moments by living to a greater degree every day.
Yeah.
So if someone dies and you had a fight with them 2 years ago and you never got over that fight, that's going to hurt you more than the next day you went back and you fought with them again to try and resolve it, and you fought with them again and you tried everything that you could. Even if you don't get a positive result, you know in your own mind, I tried my best.
Yeah.
So when they're gone, you're not living with this guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the aim, right? To try to live every day like this.
Yeah, not live with that regret.
The hard thing is consistency.
Think about you marching around for 40 years. Every day you think, we should have gone in. We should have gone in. We should have gone in. Every time you have a sandy meal, you're like, we wouldn't be having this if we went in.
Death sentence.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. Yeah, we should be checking in with ourselves on that, I reckon, daily. Maybe that'll be a fun thing to do for a week and then talk about it the following podcast.
Yeah, see it with your face. I'm not good at doing that sort of stuff, instituting that stuff.
I'm really bad at it, but if I have to be accountable because the whole family's going to be watching it, then maybe I'm more likely to do it. We can talk about that next week, though.
Yeah.
I think for this week, the Super 8's got me charged up. I'm looking forward to doing that. Take
the opportunity.
Yeah.
And it'd probably be, well, at least I know mine will be bad. You've got much more experience.
Mine's going to be so good.
We're going to play this moment back next week. But I think just living life and having a go and really being comfortable. That's something that's really playing on my mind a lot. Being comfortable with failure. Like, fail on purpose. Like, not self-sabotage, but actually put yourself in a position where you know you're going to fail and have a go anyway.
The odds are you're going to,
Yeah, have a go anyway.
When's the last time you had an experience like that?
This podcast.
Okay.
We didn't start this podcast with an agenda or some big framework. We haven't discussed this. We just went for it.
When's the last time you did it and you actually failed?
There's been a few things I've been involved in where I've been sending messages or putting requests out there, and I've completely failed. Completely. To the point where no one says anything.
Okay.
So that was like last week.
I went and did an audio job once, Foley sound, which is like making the clip clops for the horses or writing the pen on the thing. And I went and did this job for this guy, and I thought, I've never done Foley, but I'm going to put myself out there because I'd got in this habit of doing that. That's how I got this offer in the first place. And it had all worked out really well. So why not keep doing that? So I put myself in a position where I've never done it before. And within 10 minutes, I realized that he could see I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh,
I felt I had no idea what I was doing. And this was a 2-hour session that we had where I couldn't escape. And I could still feel that sinking feeling here. So there's that death payoff. Like, there is that risk. And now the next time you go do something where you could fail, there's that same risk. But when in comparison to around the desert for 40 years,
Yeah, imagine you were sitting here going, I was offered this job for Foley and I never took it.
yeah, that could have been my dream job. Like, I really like audio. Yeah.
Yeah. At least now you failed in that.
Yeah.
You've got a sense of failure. Maybe you'll prep next time. Maybe you'll do some more YouTubing or Googling on the thing and you'll be better prepared next time.
Yeah, or the next time I step in something and completely fail,
Sure.
I at least know what that feeling is, where your heart sinks and your face goes white, and you would do anything to run away. Yeah.
And maybe next time you go, listen, I know I'm not doing a good job.
Yeah.
I've done this before. I'm not going to waste your time anymore. And maybe it turns into something else positive
Yeah.
because you've been down
Imagine
that
the
road.
confidence there, rather than like feeling the shame, just going, oh, I know this feeling. Actually, I suck at this, and I'm sorry I wasted your time. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I guess that would feel really good. Yeah, I think it can be painful, but that's the better decision. I agree.
Yeah.
So without ever having done a Super 8, I'm going to say that mine is going to be amazing. There'll be no shame afterwards. Yeah.
My agenda is to enjoy the process. I want to have a bit of a challenge. This is not a life and death challenge.
Yeah.
No one's going to hate us if we do it badly.
It's fun.
And so I want to play. I think being passionate about things and playing with things is so important. I mean, the whole way kids develop is by play. Everything is play.
Yeah.
Even the way they learn to smile or give facial expressions or mouth things. Little Sammy was making noises last night because Bonnie was giving him faces, so he's copying those. It's just play. And I think when we take ourselves out of those things and we just become too serious and we just want everything to be perfect and we want to be successful at everything with no failure, it's dangerous. It's a really dangerous place to be. And those sort of people are usually very stressful to be around, boring to be around. I know because I'm one of those people. But I'm trying to come to a place where I'm just playing, I'll just try it, just figure it out. And we'll fail. And then do it better next time if we can.
If we can, yeah. I'm with you on that.
So how are we going to outro this podcast, Jay?
Yeah, I think that was good. I enjoyed that chat. Did you?
Yeah, I loved it. That was great.
All right.
Imagine watching this in 10 years' time.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got to zoom out a bit because I get so critical watching the last one. It's been good. We got some things to work on and we're going to work on them. But that felt good.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely looking forward to the intro of the next one. I think that'll be fun.
It'll be exciting.
So let's leave it on that note.
Great. See you guys next week.
See ya.